Imagine the smell of warm, fresh bread filling your kitchen, the sound of a burger cooking over an open flame, or the rustle of rice shifting inside a cloth bag. Now picture this. One family controls all these experiences, sourcing every grain, shaping every meal, but almost no one knows their name. From a small wooden grain shed in Iowa to the halls of global power, they have quietly become the puppet masters of the food that billions consume every day. Congressman Henry Waxman, disgusted by their sheer influence, once labeled them the worst company on earth. Former Secretary of Agriculture Robert Berglund claimed their intelligence network is better in its field than the CIA. Their rise has been like a shadow creeping into every part of the world food industry, invisible yet undeniable. Their name? Cargill. But behind the massive wealth and power lies darkness. Cargill's operations remain shielded by secrecy. As a privately owned company, they bypass the level of scrutiny faced by public corporations. Operating with near impunity and zero accountability, their fortune, a staggering sum of billions, comes at the cost of human exploitation, environmental destruction, and a stranglehold on competition. They've gotten away with it for over a century, but how? And how did this small, unknown family business become a giant that now sets the price of everything we eat? It's time to uncover the shocking, untold story of Cargill. The Civil War is over. Tall corn plants sway in the hot sun, their sweet, earthy smell mixing with the salty sweat of tired farmers. But their fresh harvest sits in open piles on the ground. If the train is late, the grain rots away. If it arrives on time, buyers cut prices in half, leaving families hungry despite their hard work. Into that mess steps William Wallace Cargill, just 20, eyes bright with quiet dreams. He's seen neighbors lose everything to storms or slow trains, and it breaks his heart. He wants to help and build a better future for himself. His idea is simple: a storage shed. He buys one old, creaky wooden warehouse by the train tracks. Farmers rush in, desperate. For a small fee, Cargill keeps their grain safe, dry, protected, ready to sell. Every load saved means kids eat, and trust in William stacks high like grain sacks. Word spreads fast along the train lines. By the 1880s, he builds 3 more sheds in Minnesota, packed with piles of wheat. Then comes a twist that builds an empire. In 1895, William marries his daughter Edna to another grain keeper, John Hugh McMillan. Their love unites 2 businesses into one family powerhouse, the Cargill McMillans. When William died in 1909, money troubles hit hard, but John McMillan Sr., tough and sharp, guides them through hard times. Money crashes that break other companies, dry lands that kill crops, and the mess of World War I tearing up food supplies. His skill shines so brightly that the U.S. government hires them to manage food logistics in the country. Time passes fast. John's son, John Jr., sharp from college, takes over with bold ideas. But danger arrives. Big foreign companies invade. Bunge sails money from the Netherlands up the muddy Mississippi. Louis Dreyfus sends French ships across the vast Great Lakes, and Continental Grain digs in at Chicago's busy docks. These giants circle like hungry sharks. The air grows heavy with worry. Losing could erase years of sweat. How will this small storage business turn danger into a bold leap, changing how the world handles grain? In the early 1900s, giant foreign companies like Bunge, Louis Dreyfus, and Continental Grain invaded America's grain market. Their ships sliced through rivers, ready to dominate. Cargill knew they needed more than just storage to survive. Their solution? A bold, revolutionary idea: the endless belt. a massive, invisible chain linking farm to fork. Imagine a giant conveyor belt stretching across the country, starting from the quiet farms of Iowa and ending at the busy streets of New York City. At each point along this belt, Cargill found a way to make money. The belt starts at the farm, where Cargill sells seeds to the farmers. Then, once the grain is harvested, Cargill stores it in their warehouses and profits from the storage. The grain then rolls to a Chicago mill, where it's turned into flour. Cargill's genius was in making money at every single step along the way. But they didn't stop there. They sold the milling machines, the sesame seeds, the salt, and many other ingredients for restaurants, even the trucks hauling it all. The farther the grain travels, the more money they make. The concept was groundbreaking, but what truly set Cargill apart was its communication system, which, according to U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Robert Berglund, proved to be more effective in its field than the CIA. This sophisticated intelligence network played a pivotal role when Cargill became a member of the Chicago Board of Trade in 1935, marking its entry into the world of commodity futures trading. A commodity futures contract is essentially an agreement to buy or sell grain at a predetermined price on a specified future date. This is where Cargill's intelligence system became critical. Success in commodity futures trading depends on accurately predicting market price fluctuations, knowing whether prices will rise or fall. Cargill's business relied on timely information, forecasting, and communication. The quicker and more accurate the information, the greater the potential for profit, leaving rivals behind in the race. It's worth noting that this all took place in an era with no internet and advanced technology. Interestingly, Cargill's renowned intelligence network wasn't actually built by the company itself. So, how was it created? In 1923, Cargill took another huge step. They bought Taylor and Bornick, a company with a powerful telegraph system called the Clement Curtis teletype. This technology allowed Cargill to send messages faster than ever before, like having a private internet, but long before the internet existed. Now, Cargill's many branches across America could send important information back to headquarters in Minneapolis in seconds. This information was like gold for Cargill. With it, they could predict how prices would change and get ahead of their competitors. This network was a lifeline during tough times. When the Great Depression hit, grain prices crashed, and many farmers were struggling. But Cargill wasn't worried. They had predicted the price drop. They stockpiled corn as prices tanked, then sold high when prices climbed. Then came the Dust Bowl, 1930 to 1936. Drought turned the American prairie into a barren wasteland. But while others suffered, Cargill found an opportunity. The Dust Bowl, caused in part by the rushed expansion of farming practices into delicate land, left many farmers without a harvest. But Cargill's intelligence system had already predicted the shortage. They bought up the remaining grain, holding it in their storage facilities until the price shot up. Then, as the rest of the country scrambled for supplies, Cargill sold at a huge markup. While the farming community collapsed, Cargill was reaping the rewards. Cargill had predicted the outcomes of both crises, and they capitalized on them. While the nation suffered, Cargill's ability to make calculated moves turned tragedy into profit. But not everyone was happy with Cargill's power. In 1938, the Chicago Board of Trade kicked Cargill out, accusing them of trying to control the corn market. It was the U.S. government's first shot at reining in Cargill's power. But Cargill's connections and lobbying muscle kept them in the game. The Department of Agriculture backed them, and Cargill kept growing with little regulation. This was just the start. With money and power piling up, Cargill wasn't just about grain anymore. It was about owning every bite on your plate. So, how'd they go from grain to your entire meal? Stick around, because Cargill's next moves will blow your mind. It's the 1940s, and the world is crumbling. World War II has turned busy ports into ghost towns. The salty air that used to be full of the sound of ships and the smell of grain is now heavy with silence. Cargill's ships were stuck, their trade routes cut off by war. For most companies, this is the end. But for Cargill, a grain trading giant, it's the beginning, a spark, a chance to conquer. In smoky boardrooms, sharp minds didn't panic. They made plans. Grain wasn't enough anymore. The war showed how fragile an empire who depended on one product could be. So they pivoted. Animal feed, soybean processing, vegetable oils. Each move was a lifeline, a shield against collapse. And not only did it worked like magic. Take corn. Once just a dusty crop stacked high in silos, it became Cargill's golden key. They didn't just trade it, they transformed it. Corn turned into oil, syrup, starch. 100 little miracles pouring out of their machines. The hum of factories replaced the quiet docks. Cargill wasn't surviving, they were thriving. Fast forward to the 1970s. Cargill's hunger hadn't gone away, it had grown. It had conquered sectors far beyond agriculture. Coffee, cocoa, and meat processing were just the beginning. The company swiftly acquired steel, petroleum, and real estate, with each move calculated to increase their dominance. Then came 2022. A massive deal shook the world. Cargill and Continental Green teamed up to buy Sanderson Farms for $4.53 billion. In one night, they became the third biggest chicken producer in the US. Lawyers complained about unfair competition, but Cargill didn't care. The deal went through without a hitch, showing how powerful they were. So, what's this mean for you? Everything. Cargill is responsible for the chicken on your plate, the bread in your sandwich, and the oil in your pan. With fewer companies holding the reins, prices don't slowly go up. They skyrocket. Families feel the pinch. Every year, going to the grocery store hurts more. You're not just feeding yourself, you're also feeding their empire. And yet, Cargill continues to defend these price hikes, citing global crises like the COVID-19 pandemic or the war in Ukraine. But here's the twist. Cargill's profits went through the roof in 2022, even though you had a hard time paying for basic things. Food prices reached all-time highs, and Oxfam International made a shocking announcement. New billionaires were entering the food business, with Cargill at the top. This wasn't inflation. This was what's known as greed inflation. They didn't raise prices to survive. They did it because they could. Their hold gets stronger than your wallet. Cargill has a stranglehold on what we eat. They put pressure on suppliers, change markets, and leave customers gasping. Every bite you take fuels their machine. There is something hiding in the dark. Their rise isn't just a story of success. It's a warning. The real cost isn't money. It's in the lives of people and in the earth itself. What dark secrets hide behind their empire? Stick around. The next chapter will rip the mask off Cargill's legacy. And trust me, you won't see it coming. Imagine a giant so big that its shadow covers whole continents. That's Cargill. A company whose thirst for profit didn't just build an empire, it built a nightmare. This isn't just about money. It's about children enslaved, forests burned to ash, and food turned to poison. Let's peel back the layers and uncover the true cost of Cargill's success. the Asian financial crisis hits like a huge wave. Nations like the Philippines, Taiwan, and Indonesia, lands that once filled Cargill's silos with soy and wheat, shut down. Farmers locked their gates, crops dried up. Cargill stared down a $4 billion loss, equivalent to 8 years of profits at that time. They could have adapted. Instead, they chose a darker path, one that would leave a mark on their name forever. Turning to the Ivory Coast, where cocoa flows like water. But this cocoa came with a price no one should pay. Imagine a child who is only 10 years old waking up to the horrible smell of pesticides. He holds a spray can in his small hands with no gloves or mask on. His skin is bare against the poison. These weren't workers. They were slaves, stolen from Mali, trapped in a living hell, starved, beaten. Cargill didn't care. They didn't ask questions. They just wanted cheap cocoa. Big names like Nestlé and Hershey lined up, filled their carts, and ignored the cries. In 2005, a lawsuit exposed the horror, but Cargill got away with it. By 2018, they expanded their warehouses in Abidjan. By 2019, they pumped $113 million into cocoa processing plants in the Ivory Coast and Ghana. Their no child labor promise, a hollow lie buried under profit. It wasn't just cocoa that fueled Cargill's growth. The company's hunger for land drove them into regions like Indonesia and Brazil. There, they would stop at nothing to secure more territory, even if it meant trampling on the lives of entire villages. In 2011, one of Cargill's palm oil suppliers in Indonesia sparked outrage. In the village of Sungai Beruang, a single villager was accused of stealing fruits. But instead of seeking justice, armed security forces were dispatched, turning a small theft into a violent act of control. In a ruthless show of power, the security forces razed the village. Homes were torn down, lives uprooted. Over 100 people lost everything, all to make room for more palm oil plantations. But the most chilling chapter of Cargill's land grab happened in 2004, when the company led the charge to clear a huge area of Amazon rainforest, almost the size of Hawaii, to make room for the most profitable crop of all, soy. Greenpeace protested this deforestation, but Cargill just moved its operations to another important rainforest, the Cerrado, which is home to 5% of all plant and animal species on Earth. By 2018, the amount of deforestation in Cerrado was terrible. It was shocking that 2/3 more land was cleared than in the Amazon, a total of 95,000 square kilometers. Greenpeace spoke up again, but Cargill only gave them a vague $30 million soy action plan, which was little more than a meaningless promise. They kept marching, saying that if they didn't buy the soy, someone else like China would. It wasn't about being able to last. It was all about getting cheap land, cheap crops, and keeping their profits coming in. But the horror doesn't end there. Cargill's carelessness in 1971 caused one of the worst cases of corporate negligence in history. Cargill's choice to send wheat and barley treated with a banned chemical to the Iraqi government led to the Pink Death, which was an outbreak of methyl mercury poisoning. To tell them apart, they wrote on the bags with pink colors. The government, unaware of the dangers, distributed it to local farmers, leading to the deaths of at least 459 people and affecting countless others. The Western story has tried to put all the blame on the Iraqi government, but Cargill's part in it can't be ignored. Henry Waxman, a former U.S. congressman, was right when he said that Cargill was the worst company on earth. They have a long history of breaking the law, including using child labor, food safety scandals, and destroying the environment. Between 2000 and 2022, Cargill faced 242 violations in the US, paying just $190 million in fines, which is a drop in the ocean compared to their billions in profits. If you found this investigation eye-opening, don't miss our last video. The man who made Hitler the most powerful man in Europe and the German economy's Caesar. Who was he? Click to find out.